Okay, so we're going to be creating a holiday image that looks something like this. We're going to use Adobe Photoshop to do it, and it actually won't be as hard as it might look. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. So I'm going to go up, once I've opened up Photoshop, and create a new document. I'll call it something like winter scene, and I'll add my name to it. And this file is going to be about 1280 pixels wide by 1050 pixels tall. And I'll press OK. Actually, before I press OK, make sure that you have RGB color selected here for color mode. That'll make things a little bit easier later on. So I'll go ahead and press OK. And right away, I'm going to make a new layer down here, and I'm going to call it Sky. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. Now, you might not see the rectangle tool. Remember, it's nested here with other tools. So you might see like the ellipse tool or the polygon tool. But it's going to be right around here. If you click and hold, you can go ahead and select the rectangle tool. And you're just going to go ahead and select, make a rectangle on the entire screen here. And now I'm going to go ahead and change this by double-clicking on my little layer right here, which brings up my layer style menu. Now this is going to allow me to do all kinds of things, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time in the layer style menu this time. This time we're going to be adding a gradient overlay. So I click gradient overlay, and then I click over here to actually bring up the options, and you see I've already created the gradient overlay that I'm looking for. So what I've done is I've changed the gradient style from linear to radial. That means it's a circular pattern. I've changed the angle to -30. And then I double clicked in here inside the gradient button, and I brought up the actual gradient menu. And what I've done is I've added 3 stops here. So I've added a stop here around this area, and I double click on it, and I'm choosing a light blue color. If you want to have the same exact color as me, you can come down here and put this in, CDF5FF. That will find the exact same very light blue color I'm using. You probably don't have a stop right here, so I just double clicked right here to add a new stop. And I found a dark blue color. If you want to use the same one as me, it's 0067A9. And then on the last stop over here, I set it to black. And that gives me this gradient overlay that's going to be the basis for my sky. The next thing we're going to do is add sort of a hill shape. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, which is right here. It's also nested with these, so you might see these instead. But get your pen tool. It's very important that you have shape selected right here and not on path. So make sure shape is selected. And I'm going to click outside the box on this side. I'm going to come to about here, and I'm going to click and hold. And I'm going to move the mouse down a little bit. Then I'm going to come to about here. I'm going to click and hold again. Then I'm going to come over here, click and hold. And once I'm outside the canvas, I can just come around here, and I just need to connect the points at this point. I'm going to go ahead and make it the fill color black. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the layer styles here again by double clicking on the shape here. I'm going to go ahead and, before I do that, we'll just call this hill. So I'll bring up the layer styles, and I'm going to add an inner glow this time. So I'm going to click on inner glow to check it, and then I actually have to select it to bring up its options. I'm going to make it say screen. The opacity, I'm going to do closer to 45%. This white color is fine for me. Softer is okay. We want it to be about 35 pixels in terms of size. And if you see what happened right then is you can actually see the inner glow begin to happen. It actually creates a glow that moves into the shape as opposed to glowing out from the shape. So we'll do maybe closer to about 40. And everything else is good. I'm going to go down and do a gradient overlay again. So I'll turn that on and click on it. And we're going to leave pretty much things the same. I'm going to change the angle to about 50%. And I'm going to open up. And I only need a couple of stops this time. So I'm going to click on that and delete it. Delete that one. So now I only really need these two stops. We're going to make this one sort of dark, and this one, instead of being black this time, we want a lighter blue color. Something like that. If you want to have the same exact one that I'm going for, we're going to do 68C4ED. I press OK, 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 and now my hill has sort of a nice blue gradient to it. After I finished recording, I was looking at it and I didn't quite like what I had done. So when I came back in the gradient overlay, to do that I could actually just come right down to gradient overlay and double click again. And I had this sort of -50 angle. I'm not really liking that at all. So I was playing around with it and I found 0. Actually, I like the way it looks a lot more. And that brings me to an important point. The idea here is that you're creating a similar image to mine, but by no means do you have to make the exact same image as mine. So if you want to play around with some settings and fool around with some things, you should definitely do that. And you might end up with something that looks better than mine, or one that you like better than mine. And since we're in sort of the correcting mood, I think I've got too much black up here in the sky. So I came down to the gradient overlay of the sky, and I changed the actual scale of this a little bit. And if I raise the scale up, you can look on my screen and see that the black is sort of fading away. And I like that a little bit better. It was just a little bit too dark out there. It looked a little too strange. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some trees to the scene. So we're going to use what's called the custom shape tool, which is nested here with the rectangle, ellipse, and all those other tools that make shapes. On the bottom here we have one called custom shape tool. And up top here you see I've already chosen the tree, but if you click here, it's kind of like brushes, which we've used before. But if you click on the little gear and you go and find the nature ones and press OK to reset to the nature ones, you'll find the ones that involve nature. And the first one there is this tree. So we're going to add several trees. We're going to do it in sort of a bunch of different blue colors. So we'll start with this, and I'm going to draw them. You click and drag to draw the tree. And I'm going to go ahead and change the color each time to be a little bit different. I'm going to make each tree a little bit different in size and location. And right now, as you can tell, these shape layers are popping up underneath of my hill layer. In just a minute, I'll be able to change those. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a few of them in different locations. And I see they're all coming out this dark blue color, and that's fine. What I'm going to do now is go back and actually change each one. So I'll do it like that. So I get shape 3, which was this one. I'll double click on it over here, and I can make them sort of different shades of blue. I get shape 2, I think that's this one. I'll double click over here and I'll just change it to be a little bit lighter. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take all of these. I'm going to click on the top one, click on the bottom one, and I'm going to press Control E or Command E. That does sort of put them all in the same color. So I guess I won't do that. I'm going to press Control Z to undo that. What I will do instead is I will drag them all into a new folder down here. This folder we'll call Trees, and that way they can retain their own individual colors. But I will plop this up above the hill layer so I see them all on my scene. Now we're going to go ahead and add some snowflakes. I'm going to do it the same process. So instead of using this tree shape, you'll see inside the nature here we have at least 3, possibly 4 shapes that you could use as snowflakes. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. And I'm going to change the fill to white because black snow would be weird. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw several throughout my scene of varying sizes. Then I'm going to at some point change it up to one of the other snowflakes. Do the same thing, spread them out. Some larger than others. We're not really going for realism here. We're going more for a holiday card, so it's okay if it doesn't look super real. And I will go ahead and do a few of these. Maybe even a few down here. Okay, and you see what I've done is I've created a bunch of shapes here. They're all on their own layer. So I'm going to select the top one. I'm going to hold shift, select the bottom one. So now I have all of them selected. This one I can go ahead and I'm going to press Control E. That's going to throw them all on the same layer, and that's fine because it's fine because they are all the same color. I don't mind if the color changes a little bit. And I can just go ahead and call that snowflakes. All right, now we're going to add some sort of depth into our scene by adding a few more hills. They're going to sort of be in front of and behind the first hill we made. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'll call it front hill. I'm going to grab my pen tool. And this one I'm going to sort of make a little bit sort of opposite of the first hill I made. So I'm going to click out here. I'm going to sort of drag it downwards to sort of mirror the one that I have right above it. Click and drag again. Something simple like that. And once I'm off the canvas, I can just come around and connect them. Now I'm going to once again open up my Layer Styles menu by double clicking over here in the Layers panel. And we are going to go ahead and add an inner glow. The blend, need to click on that to open up its actual options. Screen mode is fine. We'll do like closer to 75% for opacity. Oops, I shouldn't press enter there. Let's see. We're going back down to 75% here. White is fine, softer, all this stuff is fine. We're going to make the closer to like 50 pixels. And we are going to range of 50%. And maybe I'll change the color just a little bit to be sort of a very, very, very light blue. You're probably noticing that we can't really see the glow. That's because we made sort of a very, very light white glow on top of a white hill. So let's go ahead and change the color of the hill itself. I've clicked back on the front hill layer and I've gone up to fill. And I'll go ahead and click this box here that gives me sort of my full palette. And I'll make the color for the hill. We're going to use A7 FEF6, which is sort of a light blue, greenish, teal color. And once I do that, I can actually see the sort of the little white glow that comes inward around the hill. Okay, we're going to add some more depth. I'm going to add a new layer. And I'll call this one the very front hill. The frontiest hill of them all. And we're going to go ahead and grab the pen tool again. And we're going to make just sort of just going to add a little bit of depth here. So I'm just going to do sort of a really simple little hill just like that, sort of in the very front. So we add layers here and it gives the sort of the illusion of sort of 3D-ness on the 2D canvas. So we will go ahead and open up our layer styles by clicking the layers panel. And once again, we're going to do an inner glow. And our settings here are pretty much going to be okay. I will make a little bit of a darker color so we can actually see it a little bit better. Maybe turn it up just a little bit to about 90. We go like that. And we will actually also going to add a gradient overlay. So turn on gradient overlay. It takes one of our earlier gradient overlays, which looks ridiculous, and we are going to go ahead and open up the gradient menu here. We only really need 2 again, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one right here by clicking on it and pressing delete, and this one delete. So this one I want to be sort of a light blue color, which is going to be 5-1 DDFE. This one over here is going to be mostly, actually no, it's going to be completely white. So we'll do that. And now I can play with the angle a little bit to sort of spread that out and get the feel I'm looking for. I'm liking that. I might turn, there we go, sort of turn the scale all the way up, and I can continue to play around with the angle to get something I like. I kind of like that right there.